Hi, you are listening to The Sound of Color, a podcast exploring how color shapes design, architecture, and the way we experience the world.
I think it's a pure emotional reaction to it. There is never any strategy or theory behind my color approach, to be honest.
I'm your host, Sarah Gottlieb, and I'm a designer and a color specialist. In each episode, I invite influential guests from the fields of design, art, and architecture to talk about their work, their ideas, and the role color plays in both. So whether you're a designer, an architect, or simply someone who just loves color, this podcast is for you.
There's always a disappointment when you open the kiln, because you put an object in there and in your head, it's the best fucking thing you've ever made and it's gonna be incredible. And then you open the kiln and there's always this element of, oh.
This episode is supported by the Danish Arts Foundation, helping bring more color, creativity and great conversations to life. Now, let's get back to the episode. Hi Marie.
Hi Sarah.
The guest in this episode is ceramic artist Marie Herwald Hermann.
I'm so happy to have you as a guest here on the Sound of Color podcast.
Marie Herwald Hermann is a Danish ceramic artist whose work explores the quiet poetry of everyday life. Her practice often revolves around still life and the domestic table, where vessels, objects and glazes become part of a larger narrative about memory, intimacy and time. Guided by a deep curiosity for how color, form and surface interact, Marie's pieces hover between sculpture and function, always inviting close attention and slow looking. Whether working on intimate hand-thrown vessels or large-scale installations, she sees ceramics as a way of shaping atmospheres, making spaces for reflection and connection. In this episode, we talk about how color can shift mood and memory, why the traces of touch matter in clay, and how literature and art history weave into her practice at the wheel. So let's dive into a conversation about material, memory, and the way color shapes the poetics of form with Marie Herwald Hermann.
My relationship to color and my journey to color in my work has been a slow kind of journey in a way, and I think I often think about color as almost like a pendulum oscillating between points, between quietness like a whisper and a fastness like a shout, shouting not in an aggressive way but more as a joyful, jubilant way. So for me there is these two ways of thinking of color that is kind of linked, and it's the whisper. Sometimes I want to whisper, and sometimes I want to shout, and sometimes I want to run and kind of have a fast pace, and sometimes I really want to slow down. And my relationship to color and the use of color is linked to whatever it is I want to say with the work and the body of work I'm working with.
I like that. That's a new way of looking into it.
Yeah, and so I think to your question, when I started working, I should kind of go back and say my fascination with color, right? I grew up in a house with both my parents were architects. So it was a house with white walls, but very specific white walls, and then color, some color, right? But always like a limfarve. God, I don't even know the English word for that.
Oh yeah, is that like
it's like a pigment, right? That you paint with. So not a flat paint.
No, it's like a pigment that you mix with this kind of glue-ish substance.
Exactly, right? So that it's
very technical explanation.
Yeah. Maybe I'll look it up and figure it out.
Yeah.
But so that the color were always alive, right? It's not a flat color and very specific color. And then I remember as a kid going to Thorvaldsen's museum and just being in Copenhagen, where I grew up, and just kind of being completely fascinated with the inside of this museum, right? It's small rooms with different colors, every room, right? And it's
quite intense and vibrant and living color. Again, like pigment colors, that's such an experience to be in.
Absolutely, but they are always in relation to another color. They're never a color on their own. So you stand in a green room, but you can, an intense, dark, foresty green, but you're looking into the next room that's a blue, right? It's a sky blue. And then you can see the red room afterwards, right? So they're always conversations between colors. And I think that has formed the way I think of color, because it's never a color. It's always a color next to another color. So they're always multiples, because it's the conversation between the two that I'm really interested in. But then
how did color then come into your ceramic work?
Yeah, so I started with these very, what I would say, kind of quiet colors. So kind of a pale blue that's a kind of a specific Chinese glaze from the Song Dynasty 1200 called the Celadon glaze, and it's almost like an icy blue, very quiet, and that started, and then kind of these grayish pink came in, almost like when you blush, right? So they are there, but very quiet. So I think it's a way of kind of slowly whispering.
Yeah.
And that's kind
of
of
learning to talk almost.
Exactly. And that kind of then developed and became, brighter colors. But then again, like this kind of pendulum, then I have times where they become very bright and kind of contrasty. And then there's times where, again, they kind of almost disappears. I've just finished a body of work that were kind of based on drywall compound.
What a sexy term.
Exactly.
Drywall can you just take us through what is drywall compound?
It's a material. So when you build a house or a room, you make a structure, and then you put sheets of drywall up.
Got it,
and then when two sheets meet each other, you want to hide the seam. So you use this kind of, it's almost like a plaster. And you kind of put it on, and then you sand it down, and then it feels like a continuous wall with no cracks.
One long surface.
Exactly. And then, of course, when it's dry, you prime it, and then you put paint on, right? And you color the wall. So this drywall compound, which is like a warm, cream yellowish color, not specifically nice, not ugly, but I was interested in this non-color, a color that's never meant to be seen, because it's always meant to be painted on and hidden. And this body of work I was making this past 6 months when I was in Chicago. And there was so much shouting in the world, and specifically in America, right? And I wanted to whisper, and I almost wanted to kind of have everyone just slow down and just pay attention to each other. And I think that's how I chose this color. Because it felt like a color that was just so quiet and never meant to be seen. So I painted the walls in the gallery in this color, and all the objects were that color, so they almost disappear within themselves. But when you slow down, you start to see the variations in the objects that are placed there. And that slowing down, I'm really interested in. That when you make an object with, let's say, 7 components on it, which is how my work often is, it's always objects in relationship to each other. And they all may appear white as you look at them, kind of first, but then when you slow down and you look, suddenly as time becomes still, the colors kind of almost becomes stranger, no, not stranger, but the colors almost become further and further away from each other, and you start to notice a warm white, or a yellowish, or a bluish white, or a matte surface, or a shiny surface. So it's almost like the object becomes louder when you becomes quieter.
I love how Marie invites us to slow down, to be still enough to notice the subtle shifts and quiet nuances of color. That speaks straight to my color nerd heart. Now, let's hear what color she chooses for my experiment, The Sound of a Color. So I've asked you to choose a color, Marie.
Yeah.
And what color have you chosen to hear the sound of?
I thought a lot about that, and there was many variations and possibilities, but I think I came up with a color that is somewhere in between a brown, a gray, and a green.
A brown, a gray, and a green. Yes.
So if you take an avocado and you open it up and you leave it for a few hours and it starts to get that brown.
Yeah.
So it's like a grayish, greenish brown. And for me, that color is almost a transition color because I associate it with it becoming something else. It's both really beautiful, but there is also a little bit of like an embarrassment or something about it.
Like something getting ruined.
Yeah. So it's not decay, it is a decay, it's not death, but it's transitioning. And I've been fascinated and loving that color for a long time because the minute you put a pink or a blue next to it, the blue and the pink just becomes so much more beautiful.
Yeah.
Because of that.
Have you created a glaze that has that green color?
Yeah.
Do you have one? A sample?
I have one. I have an image of one.
Yes.
Here.
Oh yeah.
And it's this kind of color. And I don't have a sample here.
And this just we're pointing at some like print proofs from a book, and this is from the exhibition. Is that from the walls of? Help me out with the title.
And the walls became the world all around.
Yeah, and the walls became the world all around.
Yeah, and it's this color.
Yeah, which is the color on the wall next to this. Not an Eve's blue, but like.
Close,
yeah. Like a bit more, not so bright, but dark, intense blue.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see what you mean with the avocado going bad.
Right? Yeah.
Wow. I think you already kind of painted quite a nice picture, but, if we go with the thought that the color affects us on all our senses, what experience would feel like this color?
I think there's a melancholic feeling to it. It's maybe a little sad. But there's also a depth to it. So it's not as scary, it's not like a blood red, it's not a color that's aggressive, it's quite quiet. Maybe quietly sad. Quietly sad. Oh. Which makes it sound a little pathetic, but it's not. It's quite comfortable in its own skin.
I think because when I look at it as well, it's not like an excuse for itself.
No.
It's comfortable with being quietly sad.
Yeah.
A little bit depressed, and I'm okay with it.
And that's okay.
I think that's maybe also a lot to do with like the world that we live in at the moment.
Exactly.
Acceptance.
but also frustration to do something.
And there is hope in it. Maybe because I think of it next to something else. And I'm like, ooh, yeah, that next to this. And then there's like, oh, all these images comes into my head.
Yeah, okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
Okay, but then I think that's quite interesting. I'm going to look forward to what our musician Sophie is going to do with this.
Yeah, I'm
sure she'll wrap her musical brain around this.
A shade somewhere between grey, green and brown. Basically the color of an avocado past its prime. I'm curious how Sophie will interpret that color.
Hi Sophie. Hi Sarah.
For this season of The Sound of Color, I'm thrilled to be collaborating with musician and producer Sofie Sø, the artist behind the experimental electro-pop project Aloo. Blending synthesizers, drum machines and cinematic strings with her powerful yet sensitive vocals, Aloo has gained international attention for her emotional depth and sonic detail. With a background in mathematics, computer science, sound engineering and music, Sophie brings a uniquely analytical and intuitive approach to sound. She'll be creating a musical interpretation of each guest's chosen color throughout season 2, and I can't wait for you to hear what color sounds like. Now, let's get back to the episode. We're back.
Yeah,
I'm excited.
me too.
Let's create the sound of a color.
Down.
Damn, that's amazing. Okay, well, Sophie, in this episode, I meet up with artist Marie Herwald Hermann. She's a sculptor, ceramicist, and she's really known for like her installation work. And I would say like she has this kind of poetic use of color, material, and form, and she kind of works with evoking like memory and also like the quiet beauty of everyday spaces. So when I asked her what color she wanted to hear the sound of, she chose green. But a green that she's used in her exhibition And the Walls Became the World All Around Us, which is the exhibition that we speak a lot about in the podcast. But this green, she said it's like an avocado that's been cut up, open, and then left lying around for a few hours, so it's kind of turned brown. So we kind of ended up saying that it's a grayish, brownish green. And as she described it, a bit sad, but okay with being sad kind of color.
Cool.
Not
like that.
Not like depressed and all like, oh, I'm feeling sad for myself. More like, I'm sad and that's okay. It's this green.
Wow.
There's some avocado behind it, but
Yeah.
it's like the sad kind of avocado.
Yeah, it's very like, it's almost not green anymore. It's like almost like a stone kind of mossy
Yeah.
color.
I think also that's why we ended up on the grayish, brownish,
Yeah.
greenish.
Wow, yeah. Totally.
Yeah. But she also quite liked the color because she said like it's the kind of color that, as she said, on its own, it's kind of a bit sad, but it's when you put it next to other colors, it's kind of livens them up a bit. So like a pink
that.
becomes more alive next to this
Yeah.
sad color.
I like that.
So what's your initial reaction to the color?
It's kind of beautiful in its own way. Not a color I would usually think was beautiful if I just saw it. Like you know how it's annoying it is to have to scrape off that layer of the avocado when you want the green one. But when I see it like this, it's pretty, and especially you showed me like next to a blue, and the blue really pops with this avocado green beside it. So I'm thinking very like it's almost like a background color. Like it doesn't really. It's not a lead kind of color.
It's not a lead.
No. It doesn't want to take up space. It's like it's okay with being a bit in the background and like I don't know if you can say catalyzing another like you're like making another exaggerating other colors, actually just being this nice supportive leg for the others.
Okay, so if we take this into the musical realm. Like you need to create a piece of music here. You need to create the sound of grayish, brownish, green. Sophie, that's your job. How do you have any thoughts on, like, with looking at this color? Do you have any ideas popping into your mind?
Yeah, like I would probably try and use some of the same like adjectives on my piece as on my creative journey as as on the color. Like, how can I make a track that feels balanced and calm and at peace and a little bit in the background, like not taking up too much space, but just being there, like serving for other elements to be like carried up somehow. So it should be a nice background kind of piece without a lead. Like I don't think there will be like a butterfly, woo, or some super joyful lead on top of this or something. Like it's gonna be a bit melancholic too, and nostalgic maybe. Like like a piece of wood or some decayed avocado. Yeah,
that sounds good. I think I'm gonna look forward to like talking to you again when you've like been working with that in the studio. And then we're gonna hear your version of grayish brownish green. So see you soon.
See you soon.
We now return to Marie Herwald Hermann as she takes us into her work The Walls Became the World Around Us. A piece where space, color and form unfold into something almost immersive.
It was in a relatively big space where all the walls were painted in different colors, very bright colors, and they were
almost a bit like Thorvaldsen.
Exactly, and it is exactly drawn on the colors from Thorvaldsen's museum. On the walls were different ceramic objects, shelf objects, and some carved wood and some silicone. And in the middle of the space there was a long table with some colorful bowls, almost like what you would have you would serve a dish in. And there was 100 of those.
So it was also just for me to explain to this, almost a quite straight up big bowls.
Big bowls, exactly.
Just like a ceramic, like what do you call it? Like what's the turned?
Yeah, throne. Yeah,
Thrones,
exactly.
thank you.
And then they had a color on the inside and a color on the outside.
Okay.
Different ones.
So a duality.
Yeah. And this show I was working on during the pandemic.
Yeah.
And I was living in Chicago with my family, and Chicago closed down for almost a year.
Yeah.
So your house and your domestic space became your office and the kids' school, because they had to do online schooling for a year, and it was the dance floor, it was everything suddenly, because that was where you were and had to do everything, because the movement, the restriction of movement.
So all of a sudden the world is very small.
Exactly, and the title "And the Walls Became the World All Around" comes from a children's book, a Maurice Sendak, called "Where the Wild Things Are," that I've always loved, and it's about this kid that kind of gets sent to his room, and suddenly he starts to imagining this whole world, and he goes and visits, the wild things, and so it kind of, that got stuck in my head, like what happens when suddenly this space that we often think of as the quiet space, or kind of where we slow down, right? We're out in the world and everything is happening, and then we come home and we breathe, right?
Relaxation.
Exactly. And suddenly everything outside was so quiet, and I just wanted to shout. It was like I needed life, like I needed colors, and I started to think about, like, okay, what do I remember about colors and joy? And it was Thorvaldsen's museum.
Yeah.
So I based all the colors of that. I didn't want to match them exactly, because I wanted it to be my memory of it.
Yeah.
And then, so all the walls were kind of, there was a brown and a yellow and a red and a blue and a pink, so kind of referencing that space, and the objects were kind of in conversation with that.
And then the dark avocado going
exactly,
kind of
slightly sad,
Slightly
but then
sad.
next to a pink that made it quite cheerful.
Yeah.
And then this table with all these bowls in the middle, that was kind of a way of thinking also of like, what was I missing? I was missing people, right? Not just friends and family, but I've always loved being, in a train in rush hours, and you just packed into people you don't know, and in one way you completely disappear, and in the other way there's this energy that we all get from being close to each other. And I love cities, I love living in big cities because of that. Because that duality of disappearing and being part of something at the same time. So that exhibition was so much about that, missing life and missing joy and ugliness and chaotic things, because the world was so quiet suddenly.
Yes, suddenly the world grew quiet. But Marie's beautiful colors are anything but. They spark curiosity, and I'm eager to hear how she works with color in her ceramic pieces.
I think it's a pure emotional reaction to it. There is never any strategy or theory behind my color approach, to be honest. I make a lot of tests always. We're sitting here on a table. And
looking at
lots of color tests, and
so nice.
And again, I need to. The thing with clay is that you cannot see the color until you've fired the glaze or the clay.
Yeah.
So even though it's like an emotional reaction to the color and the way that I work with it, I need to have a formula for every glaze or every color beforehand, because I can't see it when I'm working with it. I have to wait until it's dried and been fired. So there is like a strange delay in the way that the object, the three-dimensional objects are made and look, and then color gets applied, right? Because you apply the glaze weeks later. So there is that kind of this weird kind of time warp, right? Where you can imagining it
in your brain,
in my head, right? But I'm also not completely sure. And there are the possibilities of a million options or a million variations. And because one day I'm like, oh yeah, yellows, yes. And then the next day I'm like, oh no, like let's go back to the dark blue, right? So there is sometimes back and forwards. And
do you experience that when you work with it, that you kind of have like a shape and an object, and then you kind of imagine something and you go through the process of creating the shape and the object, letting it dry, glazing it, firing it up, and then you're like, and then it comes out and you're disappointed?
Oh, so often.
What do you do then? What do you do when when disappointment hits you?
Sometimes I try to re-glaze it. You can do that.
Yeah.
And sometimes I just have to leave it behind. And I think
leave it behind, as in like leave it, or like take it in, or like do you work with I'm thinking that you work with the mistakes of color and the mistake of a process, or like how is your working process in that way?
Often I'll keep the object and it may reappear at a later time. I'm like, oh yeah, that color, now I want to use that. Sometimes I have to break it up just to kind of get it out. If it's frustration, smash it exactly. And sometimes it's a happy surprise. But you're like, didn't think of that,
Yeah.
But I think when you work with clay, and I've done that for so many years, that disappointment is such a big part of the process. Because there's so much that's left that's out of my hands to the kilns, and when you fire things, and things go wrong because I didn't make them properly or I was rushing, but there's also other things that can happen. So I think disappointment is such a, you get quite good at dealing with it. And
I love that. You get quite good at dealing with disappointment. That is like accepting being a bit sad and depressed.
Exactly.
Like the green.
Like the color.
This is like, I feel like I'm at some sort of like a therapy session here. You're like teaching me about life. This is how it is, Sarah.
And I'm quite a cheerful person.
Yes, you are. That is true.
But it's so funny that the British artist Grayson Parry, who also works with ceramics among many other things, but I think he describes it so well. He said there's always a disappointment when you open the kiln, because you put an object in there and in your head it's the best fucking thing you've ever made and it's gonna be incredible. And then you open the kiln and there's always this element of, okay. And then you leave it for a few days and you come back and often you're like, or not. But I think because those few days that the object is being fired in your head, you're like, God, I think this is it. This is such a good piece.
There's always that moment of disappointment when you open the kiln. but maybe it's simply different from what you imagined. That thought will stay with me. And now I'd love to hear how Marie works with color in relation to light and space.
The first way that I think about color is this pendulum, right? Swinging between shouting and quietness or whispering, right? And the walls became the world all around was like fast in terms of tempo with the colors and loud in that kind of joyful way.
Because of it being the opposite of how the world around you were at that time.
Yeah, and even when you just entered the space, it was like color and thing, and you kind of, there was an energy there, and you felt kind of surrounded by life. And then this other exhibition is kind of the other end of the pendulum, right? Where it's almost so quiet. It's a whisper that's almost hidden.
And can you just also, this exhibition, has it finished?
It just finished in New York, yeah.
Yeah, it just finished. And just to describe the space for the listeners, if we walk into the exhibition, how would you experience it?
So you walk into a room and all the walls are painted in this color of drywall compound, which is a material that you use to kind of, when you build a room and you put drywall sheets up, and you use this kind of plaster compound to seal the cracks or whatever gaps there is between sheets. So, and then you paint over it. So it's a color that's never meant to be seen. And it's a yellowish cream color. A color it's not specifically nice, but it's also not ugly. It's quite neutral in a weird way.
Yeah, but I would say also, for me, it's like when I looked, I didn't go to New York, unfortunately, but I looked at the images.
Yeah.
I would say it's a kind of a yellow, which is a bit like organic dairy farm.
Yes.
Cream. So in that way, if you kind of go that direction, it's like, it's quite kind of nice quality, quiet quality of luxury.
Yeah.
Cream.
But
I can also see that it's a bit bland as well.
Exactly. And I think, and then half the room, so up until your hip, was a high gloss version of the color, and from your hip and upwards were a matte. And I often work with high gloss paint and matte paint. Because of this interest that I have in that there is a difference and you can notice it depending on where your body is in the space. So depending on how the lights hit the wall and where your head is. So from one angle, it just looks one color. And then maybe you shift a little bit and then you see the reflection and you see that the bottom half of the wall kind of reflects back at you. So this kind of dependence on where you are in space and looking at the work I'm really interested in, and using color in that way as well, so that a space will change depending on how you move around it. So that was kind of that was how you met the room. Then there were 6 shelf pieces, ceramic shelf pieces, glazed in the same creamy color with objects on top of them. And these objects, I've worked for many years with the kind of what I think of as the unspectacular objects.
Can you describe that a bit more, like the unspectacular?
So what fascinates me, I think, is the life we have in a domestic space with objects in our daily life. And how we move around our space with objects, and sometimes 3 objects are placed next to each other by accident, right? It's a cup, it's your iPhone charger, and it's a piece of paper, right? And they become like a still life of what is going on with you right that moment, and then it moves on as you move on.
And move things around in you.
Exactly, right? So it's almost like a dance or choreography you have with these objects. And I choose to kind of take out one moment and make it into a small sculpture as a still life. So that there's often a couple of different objects. Some of them are vessels, so you will immediately read them as something that belongs in a kitchen. Right? You may not know exactly what it is, but you read it as, oh, it's a cup-ish, bowl-ish thing. And then there are objects that are kind of a lumpy and almost as if you could isolate the moment you touch something. So it's all about that. And then there's objects that are these objects that change shape, right? A charger, a piece of paper, our keys. These objects that we always have with us, but that are constantly kind of, it's not a shape, it's kind of multiple shapes at the same time. Yeah. So there was 4 of them on the wall, and then there was a long wooden stick, a 2-meter long wooden stick that I had carved, and then and that was kind of hanging between a pillar in the space and the wall. Yeah. And there were a long strip of silicone that was kind of draped over it. A silicone that I cast a lot in silicone, and I color it, so it was a pinkish color.
And do you say, when you say you cast a lot in silicone, do you mean like when you're making the ceramic piece, you're making a silicone cast, or you mean more like as in like I create pieces in?
So I often absolutely. So I cast big sheets of silicone, and then I cut them up and use them almost as a cloth over things. Silicone for me is a material that I've been fascinated with for a long time, both because of the relationship it has to the domestic, right? It's silicone molds, and it was meant to be this wonder material, but it's also the female body and it's female body ideals and kind of unrealistic expectations. So often I color it pink to kind of make a connection to the body.
Also, I would say that silicone has like a skin-like textural experience to it.
Exactly, and it's so appealing, and you so want to touch it, and at the same time, there's something about it that's just a little dead and pushes you back.
Yeah. When you look at Marie's works, you can sense how she's been working with an incredible range of nuances within the same color. And I'd love to hear what her thoughts are on that.
The objects in the compound and bridges seems to be the same color when you first look at it, right? And when you look at an object where you have 5 objects and they are all whitish, right? You kind of register as that. But as you slow down to look at it, they become more and more alive, and you start to notice the difference in the variations of color, and one becomes more yellow, one becomes more blue. So there is a loudness almost happening within the objects as you slow down. And I think there is something about your body in a space when you're looking at work or looking at anything. It's the same if we stand in front of a brick wall, right? If I slow down and really stare at it, I can see all the different colors of the bricks, and I can tell you where it's been maybe fired a little higher and that the brown is a little more dark, or here it's a little light. But we don't notice that when we just bicycle past, because that's also part of life, right? Sometimes we need to move fast, and sometimes we can slow down. And I think for me, the relationship to space and color is that in a space with lots of color, I can move fast. And I don't mean this as not paying attention. I think we can move fast, and we can almost like when you're at a concert and you can feel the bass in your body. You can do that when you're in a colorful room with lots of colors, right? It's fast pacing, and you go from, your eyes move from one color to the next, to the next, to the next, right? So there is an energy. And we need that sometimes. I need that sometimes. But there's also times where I need to really slow down. And I think some of the pieces, that's what I'm trying to kind of get, that they become loud when you slow down, even though they are a variation of the same color.
What Marie describes makes color feel like an extra material in its own right. And for her, it's never limited to the surface of a piece. Color always extends into the space around it.
The space is always something I think about when I start a new body of work. My work is relatively small, right? It's a lot of the objects are the scale that fits into a domestic hand, right? A domestic space, a kitchen or something. But I never want them to feel fragile. I've never been interested in the conversation around fragility because I don't think the domestic, I don't think of it as a fragile moment, right? So in a way, the walls, the colored walls, I started to use kind of colored walls as almost like a protective shield around the objects, so that they don't feel lost, right? Often we think of a gallery space and it's these white walls and it is this quite hard non-color, right? In a way, it's not a white, I mean, there's
and like a non-space.
Exactly, where we are meant to ignore it.
Yeah.
Right, so the walls are a color so that we don't think about them, right? But of course they're there, and I want to think about them. Because I don't think my work exists without them.
Yeah.
So that's how the kind of the painted walls comes in, and sometimes they've been very colorful walls. I've done a show where it's just white walls but with stripes, vertically. That's high gloss, so almost like a circus, invisible circus.
I like that, an invisible circus.
Yeah. So when you stand close to the wall, you can suddenly see all the stripes.
Yeah.
But if you're in the middle of the room, it just looks white. So there's like so many different ways of working with color for me.
Seems like it's very much about the duality of color.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
like the shift between that duality.
Yeah,
seeing it and not seeing it.
Absolutely. And sometimes you reveal something and sometimes you hide something. And I think, again, coming back to like the relationship between mattness and glass is something that I use in the ceramic objects as well. Sometimes I choose to color the porcelain that I work in so that the color is solid. And sometimes I use it as a glaze, so it's like a shield.
Yeah, and when you say solid, you mean like putting the color into the actual...
Exactly, into the clay.
Like, yeah. I'm doing like kneading fingers.
Kneading fingers, yes. But exactly.
Yeah, and where with the other you're mentioning is like you have the ceramic piece and then you apply the color in the glaze.
Exactly. Then sometimes like these, which of course people can't see on the radio, but they are a color test, and this is a porcelain that has pigments in it.
Yeah.
So it has a beautiful color, but it's not shiny, right? It's just the clay.
Yeah, this matte ceramic feel.
Yeah, and sometimes I want them to have this mattness, and sometimes I want them to be shiny and kind of reflect back at you. Then you can almost see your own reflection in it. And that, for me, is also a way of working with color.
I'm doing some, I'm looking at the colors here. So these ones, we're looking at these small round kind of tests. So with these ones I'm having here, I have these two matte ones. So that's, is this a glaze as well? Would you say this?
No, that's a colored porcelain.
Yeah, and then that's why you get this like really matte tactile kind of feel of the color. And then you have this. I have these two blues, and then I have this kind of really shiny pale pink. And that's a shiny glaze on top of the material, so it kind of almost kind of separates itself.
Yeah.
From the object in a way.
Yeah. And here it's three whites, right? And one is semi-matte, and one is high gloss, and one is completely matte because it's just the color of the clay. And for me, these are three different colors, right? They're all made with tin oxide. They're all white.
Yeah.
But because the way the light hits them, they become completely different, right? And if you have them next to each other, they seem like two different colors.
Yeah.
And I like exploring that part of color.
Yeah.
Again, as you said, that you reveal something, and sometimes you hide something, and sometimes you have to slow down to see it. And sometimes you may just doubt if it's your eyesight.
Yeah, right. Or if it's really there.
Exactly. Is it just because the light is hitting that object differently? Is that why it seems slightly more cold? Or
Sometimes you need to slow down to truly see. A reminder worth holding on to, because it's both true and deeply inspiring. And speaking of inspiration, where does Marie find hers? I asked her to bring along something that holds meaning for her.
I brought a bowl in, and it's a small bowl. It's Chinese. It's from the Sung Dynasty, so it's from 1200.
Wow.
Around that.
Yeah.
It's glazed in a celadon glaze, so it has like a greenish, bluish light color.
Yeah.
The rim is unglazed, so that's the color of the porcelain.
Yeah.
The Chinese during the Sung Dynasty were the ones who invented porcelain, and then it took Europe hundreds of years to figure out how to copy them. But I think this bowl is, for me, it's a beautiful bowl. I think it's a very simple bowl. It's again, it's not, when it was made, it was nothing spectacular, right? But once you start to kind of, again, really look, there's lots of oranges, or orange flashes. There is iron speckles, so suddenly amongst this kind of icy blue, there is like a dark brown dot. There's like a warmness, and certain places there's a coldness to the color. So I think for me, it is again that thing that there's so much going on in it, at the same time as I can also just look at it and see a super simple bowl.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
Because I think for me, it's never about kind of, we have to pay attention. Because we don't always have to pay attention, and we can't always pay attention. Not to life, not to color, but sometimes we can. And when we can, it's quite amazing what we discover and what colors suddenly re-emerges from things that we have overlooked.
Wow. I think that it really sums up your way of looking at the world, and I can really reflect it in your work. It makes a lot of sense. When I'm looking now, handling this little ball, it's true. It's it's a bit like it's a ball.
Yeah.
Good. There you go. But then again, as you slow down and really pay attention, that's lots of little details that's super beautiful or funny or odd or quirky. Yeah. And then on the other hand, you can also be like, I just eat my breakfast, here's a bowl. Boom.
Exactly. And for me, that is color, and that's my relationship to color, and it's the relationship I think most of us have to life, right? We can't, hopefully we don't do either all the time, right?
Yeah, it's the balance between the both.
Yeah, the pendulum swinging.
I think you've summed it up completely. You're the perfect. You have written the manuscript of I think this is the perfect place to finish the conversation.
Thank you so much, Sarah. This was so lovely to talk to you.
Yeah, I think I want to really say thank you as well for this inspiring conversation. It was really good. It was lovely to talk to you about your work and your love of color. And thank you to everybody who listened. I just want to say that only now we can move on and see or hear what the musician came up with.
Oh, yes.
For the sad, but okay with being sad, darkish green color. Thank you.
A big thank you to Marie for her inspiring thoughts. And now, back to Sophie and how she has interpreted grayish, brownish green.
Hi Sophie, I'm back.
Hey Sarah.
You've been working on interpreting the color grayish, brownish green. Mm-hmm. The little bit sad color, but okay with being sad color.
Yeah.
And I'm quite excited to hear your musical take on this color. Do you want to tell us a bit about the process of creating it?
Yeah, I immediately, when I saw the color, went to the studio and just I didn't think too much about what I was doing. I just let it happen as it went, because I had this colors and the associations so strong in mind. And I realized first I was like creating the sound of the avocado before it was decaying, like this bright green, beautiful color. It's the first one you can hear in the track. And then you hear its decay, like how it's like a little bit like, yeah, nostalgic, like melancholic, like going into this like, okay, here I am, and just okay with being there. But we can also hear this little like the person that's still inside, or like the core of the avocado, you know, like there's still some light green inside. It hasn't like died, like, so we can still hear that coming in sometimes, like.
It's not totally sad. On the inside, it has a sparkle.
Yeah, yeah, it still has a positive, like a little glimpse of its youth.
Old green.
Yeah.
Oh. And how did you have any struggles along the way composing it?
I kind of did. I created it, and then I was like, "Yep, this is it." And then I listened back, and then I was like, "Ooh, there are some resonances, like some frequencies that are like bothering me because I didn't spend a lot of time mixing it." And then I was like, "Okay, I'm gonna go to the studio and try and just like remove these like the harsh things about this because I want it to be so soothing and calm." Yeah, while I was in the studio, I was like, "Okay, yeah, I'll remove this and this," and then. Oh, I could hear something else started to pop up, and I was like, "Oh, now this is a problem. I'm gonna deal with that. What if I do this?" And okay, no, I'm just gonna turn this down. Then another element starting being loud because, like, I just turned down what it played against.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I was like, okay, so I'll just turn this a bit down. And then whatever that was playing against, you know, because things are coming kind of in and out in this track, and they're all like playing together.
So every time you turned something down, something else was like out of balance.
Yeah, exactly. And the whole point with this track was to create like a balance, and also not to have a lead. Like it's supposed to be just one background, like, so we can't like have something like standing very much in front and being like, here I am, I'm like the dancing lead of this track, like. And I think usually when I mix, I'm thinking about, okay, what element in this track does like needs the attention, like what is it people listen for, and then I want to of course make sure you can hear that as the main element somehow. Often in a pop song it would be the vocals, or you know, it could be the guitar in a very rock track, or like something like that. But here it's consisting of 5 elements only, and none of them should actually have the big role. They should all just like balance with each other, and
be a bit like sad, being okay with being sad. All of them.
Yeah. I think most of them are like, like I can tell you what elements are in there if you want to hear.
Yeah,
like,
please.
So there's the bright green.
Yeah,
the first one we hear. Then some like dusty, earthy for me strings come in. And then, or like first the bass and then the strings, and the bass is like for me the key. Yeah, and then there's some a high note like that I actually just put in there to balance the low like decaying parts. Just like I wanted it to not just be dark.
Because it has to be okay with being sad.
Yeah, exactly. It has still a positivity inside, I think.
I just want to say now, I think we should listen to I'm okay with it. No, I think we should listen to the piece of music. So let's ask the listeners to put their headphones on, turn up the volume, get comfortable, close your eyes, because here comes the sound of grayish, brownish green.
Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with someone who loves colors and design just as much as you do. Hopefully, they will enjoy it as well. If you'd like to see more about Marie Herwald Hermann's work, head over to my website, sarahgottlieb.dk, under the podcast section. This episode was made possible with the support from the Danish Arts Foundation. Thanks again for listening, and see you next time on The Sound of Color.